Welcome, welcome, welcome everybody to the virtual chapter for August 2019, our umpteenth edition, umpteenth and one edition. And we're going to have a wonderful guest tonight. We've got Dr. Wes Rocki with us. We're going to be talking with him in just a little while. We want to start out with just a couple announcements and let you all know that you are eligible, if you are a member of IACT or IMDHA or any other friendly hypnosis organization, you are eligible to get CEUs for attending this program. For IACT and IMDHA, at least, all you need to do is to go out to their website and log in with your member ID. And there's a place where you can just indicate, I attended the virtual chapter and I want to get that, I want to get credit for that hour and a half that I spent out there with those guys. and they'll take care of that for you. Also, the recording will be available as a replay tomorrow at noon or so, maybe even a little sooner than that, given that I'm doing a lot of tasks through the evening. It will be posted in the virtual chapter YouTube channel. It will also be posted in the virtual chapter group on Facebook. I hope you're all members of virtual chapter, the Facebook group. And it will be posted on the IACT IMDHA forum. For those of you who are members of IACT and IMDHA, you can find it there.
And if you are watching the recording, you do qualify for CEUs, so apply for those too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so well, with all that said, it's a lot of stuff going on, Karen.
A lot of stuff going on.
So Chicago, well, I was going to say, what's up, Chicago? And what's up, Chicago is Las Vegas.
Yes, it is. For now, it's Las Vegas.
Yeah.
I'm heading out tomorrow for HypnoThoughts Live, and am really looking forward to it. Teaching a workshop. I've got an easy year this year. I'm teaching one workshop, a 2-hour workshop on magic words and language patterns. I'll be talking about how to actually effectively use those language patterns and doing some analog marking and that kind of thing. So it'll be a fun workshop.
That is some, oh, go ahead.
No, and you leave Thursday, right?
That's right.
And you're teaching a bunch. You're going to be busy.
Well, I'm doing 3 things. I'm teaching a 2-hour workshop on freeing the emotional hostage. I'm teaching a 2-hour workshop on evolutionary hypnosis, and I am teaching a 1-hour on the ins and outs of working online. So for those of you who are going to be there, I hope you'll come and come to 1 or 2 or 3 or all 4 of the programs that we have just mentioned to you. We'd love to see you. And of course, we're going to be in the vendor room. The virtual chapter has a virtual table. Well, actually, it has an actual table. And we'd love for you to stop by and say hello if you're going to be out in Las Vegas. So please come and give us a howdy.
And by the way, if you're making plans for the fall, let me just throw out real quick, think about the Mid-America Hypnosis Conference. It's just north of Chicago in Northbrook, Illinois, the 3rd weekend in October. It's a smaller conference, but it's a cool conference. So just give it a thought or two. It
is a lovely conference. One of the nicest, friendliest groups of people that you'll ever want to meet. So by all means, go to that one. By the way, the other thing, Karen, I wanted to tell them about, just because I like to brag on you a little bit and what we've been doing. But Karen and I have both just finished, well, both, of course, finished at the same time because it was the same class. But we have both just finished teaching our online hypnosis certification. We had the way that we ran it, just to remind, if y'all don't know about this, is that I had a group of students in Florida and she had a group of students in Chicago. We met for live weekends before and after we did the online segments, and then we did 15 3-hour segments online where we got all of our students together, and they got to use the breakout rooms and all the great functionality of Zoom to do exercises with each other, as well as hooking up between sessions and doing a lot of practice work and homework and stuff. It's one of the best groups that we've ever had through a class. That was really, really exciting and great fun. We used to wonder if it was going to be possible. Now we know. So.
Yes, it is very possible. It's doable and it's lovely because some of these people have made lifelong friends. We had a student on the West Coast who is now probably forever connected with somebody across the pond. They have been via Zoom practicing and working together and sharing hypnosis information. And, you know, we'll probably have a lifelong study group going. It's a very cool thing. You get a lot of input from all over the world.
Yeah. And one more class I want to tell you about, that is this virtual hypnotist class that I have been teaching. Seems to come up again and again and again. And every time I finish it, which I just did, there are people saying, oh, we just heard about your class and we missed it. Would you do it again? Or when will you do it again? So we're going to do it again. It's 3 1.5-hour evenings, Monday evenings, September 16th, 23rd, and 30th, right here online. And you can just contact me if you want some information about that. And we'll let you know all about it. That's all I got except next month's announcement. Anything else, Karen?
I'm ready for next month's announcement.
Okay, well, I wanted to, I'm so excited about this actually, because next month we're going to have here at the virtual chapter, our guest will be Connie Ray Andreas. Some of you know about Connie Ray and her husband Steve and their work in the NLP community. Connie Ray is the creator and co-developer of the core transformation process with her sister Tamara, and more recently been doing the wholeness work and has a new book about that that's absolutely fantastic. So we're really looking forward to hanging out with her. She was one of my first NLP trainers and probably the lady who changed my life with regard to the way that I look at a lot of things. So I'm just thrilled to death that we're gonna have her here. And well, not to death, not quite to death. I'm thrilled to ecstatic wonderment. It's going to be great. So so come and see us next month as well.
Absolutely. And if we are through with our announcements,
yeah,
I say that we start talking to, let's just do a little improv with this guy.
Well, yeah, because I understand that you were hanging out downtown in Chicago the other day and you know, just looking for a bite to eat, and this fellow sort of came in and started chatting you up and stuff. Did I understand that right?
You got it mostly right. He did sweep me off my feet and kept me entranced for quite a lovely lunch. Yes, Dr. Wes Rocki was in Chicago. Okay, now this isn't, you know, one of your artificial or fake news doctors. Real MD doctor and PhD in physiology. Wow, smart dude. A real medical guy, right? Was in Chicago going to Second City studying improv. How cool is that?
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't mean to steal your thunder, Michael, but I just thought that was so cool.
No, that's absolutely perfect. Absolutely great. I'll tell you what, we can just talk all about him and then eventually we can get a word in edgewise. But I was at the IACTA MBHA Hypno Expo in May. And I was working at a table sitting next to Sean Carson. And, you know, and I was asking him what he had seen at the conference that he especially liked. And he says, oh, my God. He says, oh, my God, Dr. Wes Rocki. Because you have got to see this guy. He came by the table and we talked for a minute, but I was really busy. And I was very lucky that he was in my post-conference program. So that way I got to spend a little bit of time with him and chat with him after and on the breaks and stuff like that. And I'm just blown away with this fella. So yeah, so a real medical guy, interested in hypnosis, interested in improv. And the title that I saw was something about medical improv. And I thought to myself, that's got to be something like Patch Adams or something. I was just trying to figure out how to make sense out of those words and about what that was. So without further ado, first of all, Dr. Wes Rocki, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. Yes. We're really glad to have you.
Thank you so much, Karen and Michael, for your kind words and for your invitation. And Karen, you forgot to mention that in that place we practice stealing the healthy lotion, right? Was it something? That's right.
So I walk into this wonderful market and the first thing the doctor says is, come over here, we can get some free stuff. And he took me over for my dose of omega-3s out of a lotion dispenser. In order to spell out.
And then we practice improv on the lady who was selling fish oil.
Yes.
So I'm so happy to share this stuff with you because it's just cooking. I'm all juicy about this because it is my latest passion in my life. You know, probably everyone can relate to the point that we basically knew what we sign for this in this life. And I also knew, but, and I had agreement with God that she will keep me alive until I finish my task. So I figure out how to deal with aging. I just procrastinate and will be doing this. But now at 70, I think, already figure out something about this. So first of all, my blessing was that my education combined the knowledge what is wrong, which is basically a medical degree. We learn what is not working. We learn about diseases. And at the same time, I had PhD in physiology, which is knowledge what is right, which I believe is missing in healthcare, because if you don't know what is right with the body, how can you bring healing back? And then my blessing was also that I was involved in both sides of so-called fence. We make this artificial fence between mainstream conventional medicine and old forms of alternative medicine. And I had blessing to be active on both. I was gynecologist, I was internist, worked many years in pharmaceutical industry, and then retrained myself in medical intuition, hypnotherapy, and supplements, and practice holistic medicine for last 6 years. But the main conclusion of this was that that fence between medicine actually doesn't exist. That is just common sense, good medicine, or commercial variations of it. And also probably many of us relate to the fact that early in life, we got kind of message what we'll be doing in our life. And it was in my medical school in eastern part of Poland, close to the town called Białystok, which is very close to White Russia. And I was walking with my girlfriend, a rainy evening, very excited and happy. And suddenly I was approached by a drunk. Out of the blue, and out of the dark, the drunk showed up and said to me, in translation would be, "Physician, heal thyself." And then he completely disappeared. And I lived with this statement for many years. I thought that this was actually about improving myself. And I spent years of getting busy improving myself, being a better version to myself. And obviously it worked, because meanwhile I made my medical education and I was a pretty good doctor. Because again, like many of us, I was wounded healer. And the wounded healer who is actively healing. This is different from the damaged healers who are damaged by addiction, whatever. But those of us who are wounded healers are those curious people who never settle for anything kind of even. We are always looking for the meaning. So I explored that statement, "Physician, heal thyself." And actually, it was not Jesus who said it. It was the apostles who told him, because evidently he could make miracles everywhere else except of his own village. Because in his own village, he was still the carpenter boy, carpenter son, not the powerful healer. So now I'm coming back to the community with the gifts of helping to understand how we can heal from the toxic memories of past traumas. And I thought that this is just about so-called adverse childhood experience, which is probably one of the best kept secret in the medicine, because it is well-proven relationship between what has happened to us in childhood and then the outcome, what has happened in life, not only in terms what we would expect, like problems with the law, with finances, relationship, but it relates directly to so-called psychosomatic diseases, which are the bulk of chronic diseases in medicine. 80% are psychosomatic. So things like cancer, cardiovascular, immune conditions, 100 disease of the autoimmune etiology are directly linked to what we experience in childhood. And this relates to the fact that our brain was experiencing damage at the time when we didn't have resources. And this leads me to the story of the three brains. Mm-hmm. And we are kind of very happy when we talk about three, the Trinity, because it's always stable. The stool with the third leg is stable. So there are several stories of the three brains in our human existence, starting from the fact that our brain has this part of the reptilian brain, which is responsible for very basic things like temperature control, like fight and flight reaction. It's the basic survival. And that lizard brain is very old. It's around 400 million years old. And then we have second brain, which is a limbic brain, which is something which is common for mammalian. And it is seat mainly of the conditions, emotional brain. This is also when we have our memories. And then the youngest, neocortex, this is the prefrontal cortex, which is dedicated to analytical thinking, also creative thinking, and is kind of under our condition, under our awareness. And the puzzle is that the neocortex is 76% of the whole brain. However, compared to 400 million years for the lizard brain, we calculate the cortex brain for 300,000, 200,000, and they even say that some people didn't develop that yet. So we have these three kind of brains. And why this was important for what happened to us in childhood. The lizard brain, the survival brain, is responsible for the question, am I safe? Mm. And this was the main challenge of child 3, 4, 5 years old, when the safety, which was granted to develop brain, was missing. For the limbic brain, with the question, am I love? This is the love which grows us as human, and that was missing. And when we looked at the third brain, the executive, the cortex brain, the question for that brain is, what can I learn from that? And for the child who is abused thoughtlessly, the question, what can I learn from that? And this leads to paradoxes. For example, the main paradox of the abused child or neglected child is that that child doesn't love the abuser less, it loves oneself less. So we kind of agree on calling adverse childhood experience as a syndrome of self-love deficiency.
Interesting.
And I was completely dedicated to the fact that what happened once in the childhood, we are just experiencing consequences of that. And this is my personal opportunity to heal, because according to the measuring tool of the severity of adverse childhood experience, it's a scale from 0 to 10, and increasing numbers relate to increasing incidence of chronic diseases and eventually even to shortening lifespan by 20 years. I am in the middle of the scale with 5. So if I use statistics, by now I should be in the prison having second heart attack. But I am not. I am speaking to you, to this beautiful audience. And I am in good company, you know, Oprah, Tony Robbins, most of the people who are visionary actually are broken childhood people.
Mm-hmm.
So the real question is, what differentiates this population from other population? And also, there is a researcher in trauma in general, particularly childhood trauma. His name is Dr. Gabor Mate. He's Canadian. And he states this beautiful understanding that it is not actually what did happen to us in terms of abuse or what was missing in terms of neglect. It was not that which made the difference. What made difference was what happened to the child as a reaction to what happened to it. So in that young developing brain, the damage was done, which changed the development into survival. And that survival mode, never revisited, never updated, carried into adulthood, created all the problems, including chronic diseases. But you know, the question is, as we are reviewing these parts of brain, 400 million, 250 million for limbic brain, or even 400,000 for cortex. The information of this chronology is still there. We are not being born as empty blank page. We are carrying in our genes all this amazing information of the survival within our lineage. So the question is how to deal with this, with this amazing data bank. Whether this data bank is for us or against us.
Right.
When we see a new patient in our office who provides history of the problems starting, say, 5 years, are we capable to see that we are dealing with somebody who has information of successful survival in this lineage of heritage for millions of years?
Mm.
Yeah. Let me bring a joke. I heard a beautiful joke about, not Polish joke, it is good joke about a funeral singer. There was a funeral singer who was asked to work pro bono for a homeless man who died without family. And the priest asked the singer to just sing for this fellow. And since he couldn't be in the cemetery, he was located just outside the town. And the singer drove, but it was outside the town, outside of cemetery, and he arrived late. And the priest was gone, only the grave diggers were having lunch by this almost half-closed grave. And he approached the grave, obviously the coffin was covered, and he started to sing. And he sang more from his life, from his heart, and more and more. And the grave diggers joined him in singing. And eventually, in the end, they all were singing amazing graves, and all were crying, actually. And as he was leaving, one of the workers said to other, you know, this was so amazing. I have been putting these septic tanks for 10 years, and nothing happened to me like this. So, you know, that is the story, that we have this amazing library of hands-off experience of survival for millions of years. We are selected. Those who didn't figure how to do that, they never made it. We are the outcome of those who knew how to do it. And then we are singing sad songs like on the septic tank, or making a disease from this, which is just fantastic opportunity. And I hope that I'm kind of speaking to willing audience, that I'm not out of the page, right?
Sure. That's great. And in fact, if I can make a connection, Wes, we talked about this a little bit earlier today too, that first of all, I want to make sure that I'm hearing you right, in the sense that these adverse childhood experiences that you were referring to earlier sound to me. So I want to know if there's a distinction. But sound to me like the same kind of thing that as hypnotists we would typically go looking for in terms of regression to cause techniques, initial sensitizing events, and maybe things that we might do imprinting with. What I'm wondering first beyond that is that there is, as you said, this incredible database of success, right? Is there not also included in that database the trauma that was experienced in those millions of years as well?
Yes, yes. That, say, if we try to locate root causes or initial event, and we apply the time regression, then the question is, how far do we need to regress, right? Because we are aware very well about transgeneration, transfer of, as you said, good things and bad things. Mm-hmm. We have very good data on the first generation of Holocaust survivors, whose biochemical changes resembled those who actually survived Holocaust. When we look at the sacred writings in Bible, I believe there's a statement that the sins of the fathers will be carried for 7 generations, right?
Yeah.
Then we have well-established healing technique called family constellation, which is exactly that assumption that the real root cause of somebody's trouble, say 10 years ago, maybe several generations ago. And in that particular technique, which was brought from Germany, the idea was that there was some major dramatic event. They talk about suicide or homicide, happened many generations, and then generations by generations were affected by that. In my practice, I firmly believe that often dealing with women coming with consequences of the abuse, that those women healing their abuse are healing much more than themselves and their lives, that they're actually healing many generations back, many generations of abused women. And I also believe, and this is kind of fantasy, but it helps me to assist these people, that either that volunteer for their lineage to be the healers, or the lineage selected them to be healers. Because if we apply the principles of quantum physics, we agree that the time is actually agreement, right? That eventually everything is happening in this moment, including our past. It's well established that people are capable to have conversation with their heritage. We also know there is a famous Brazilian healer, John of God, and he's very effective because he has consultation committee of the saints and physicians who passed away, to whom he consults when he deals with patients.
Nice.
Am I answering your question?
I think so.
So, so this actually prompted me to explore improv, because if we have somebody with a past history of trauma, and we are digging for that root cause, and we really don't know where it is, and patient doesn't know where it is, because our body is designed with a main goal to survive. And if we experience trauma, in order to survive, it means to not re-experience trauma. That trauma is hidden in the memory, which is not accessible except with technique like hypnotherapy, and I believe also techniques like improv. But
I'm really interested in this, by the way, in terms of the relationship between, you said it somewhere else, and improv and hypnosis, as being how, in what way you see them as being the same things. This is a fascinating idea.
well, improv and hypnotherapy or hypnosis are everyday modes of survival, that we cannot negotiate being functional in this three-dimensional duality-based world without being hypnotized. And being hypnotized is just data bank of the all learning which we experienced, which we do not need to relearn each time, right? And then the improvising is actually utilizing these resources, but the difference which I believe we can make is whether we are utilizing them consciously or unconsciously. Because this leads me actually to what we discussed with Karen, which is whether we are running the script or not script. Actually, in your book, you mentioned the name scriptosis, correct?
Mm-hmm. Right.
So this is what when I learned something important from improv. That look, we are all running script. It's impossible to be alive without running script, right? Like, for example, when I'm in my office and I see a new patient, I am running script of being a doctor and anticipating what I'll be doing or whatever. The patient comes with the script of current complaints, family history, past medical history, whatever. We both following the scripts, right? And then in order to help somebody, we have, I believe, two options. One is kind of easy, is to teach people better script. So to change dysfunctional hypnotic trance to more functional hypnotic trance, right?
Right.
And many of us actually do that. But let's think about this. How do we know what is this dysfunctional trance? And how do we know what will be the functional trance for that particular person, right? Because they don't know. So we are just projecting our own stuff.
Sure.
Different approach, which excites me in my practice, is that I arrive to the place when I am comfortable with not knowing. And this is where the principles of improv comes handy, because it says yes and. It is a beautiful way of handling the opposite, which is that I am a doctor with 44 years of medical practice. I know something about medicine. And then there is this patient who has 60 years of practice of being alive and maybe 10 years of practice of being sick, right?
Right.
But this will not create healing. Because as long as I am fixed with my script of being doctor, even a good doctor or good therapist or good hypnotherapist, by default, I am projecting on them energetically on so-called mirror neurons for them to be a patient.
Yes.
Even good patients. And then we are frozen in these forms and nothing will happen. We release symptoms, we offer some hope, and they come back and back and back. So the improv comes handy to hold the opposite with curiosity, with power, and without being vested in any of these opposites.
Yeah.
Yes, I know plenty, and in this particular case, I have no idea what will happen. This is, this is my main excitement when I move from the mainstream medicine to holistic medicine. The first excitement was understanding that stuff in the mind runs the show. That somebody can be eating everything healthy, exercise, everything, but if they have garbage here, nothing will happen. So it was the first beautiful discovery. And the second beautiful discovery in the daily practice was that when patient shows up in my door, I have no idea what I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
I just say yes. But that yes, like in improv, is special kind of yes. Because you may say, well, yes, and if I am sick, am I saying yes to my disease? And this is the major understanding of improv, which doesn't come immediately. it is that the yes is not the circumstances. The yes is to me capable handle the circumstances. You see the difference?
Yes.
That by just embracing what is presented to me without judgment, just because it is, I am empowering myself to the resources which allow me to handle that. And then comes the second magic word, which is yes, which actually Karen beautifully described in her book, saying, and is a secret suggestion to the mind to automatically include everything that follows it. When you want to increase a feeling and enhance a state and deepen the trance, you can string your suggestions together with that three-letter plus sign, the magic word yes. So, for example, let's apply it to medical situation when I'm a patient, right? And I'm coming to a doctor and doctor says, oh, by the way, we got your results and you have stage 3 of something, right? And by the way, I schedule chemo for you starting tomorrow. And most of us, like a ship, we say, yes, what time for chemotherapy? But there is space for improv. Yes, and. To say, yes, I value your expertise. And I trust you. That's why I'm with you. I trust you. But I'm trusting myself also that there are many different ways of looking at it. And by saying yes to myself, I am offering myself space. Space of not reacting. Space which will allow me to respond with and possibilities. Because in contrast to the first scenario, when I agree to my chemotherapy next day, my 400 million years of DNA of information of effective survival are collapsing, completely collapsing. I'm flat. I'm saying, I don't know who I am any longer. Give me chemo. I have nothing to do against the chemo, but I'm against of doing this as a thoughtless automatic response motivated by fear.
Yeah.
There was a story told by Deepak Chopra about a young executive, very resourceful, very smart, who get bad diagnosis. And he was aware so much that he knew that his condition would be better managed, but by alternative medicine. And he went 120% pursuing everything in Germany, in Mexico, in whatever, buying the most expensive, most elusive alternative medicine modalities, and nothing happened. Nothing happened. He was getting sicker and sicker and sicker. And then he got with Chopra, and Chopra hypothesis was that all what this man did in terms of healing was motivated by fear. He was doing this because he was scared. So this was his script. So whatever he did potentiated this script.
Yes.
So coming back to that situation with the doctor giving bad diagnosis, when we apply empowering yes and resourceful and, then we are back. We have access to this 400 million of database.
Nice.
We have access to common sense.
Mm-hmm.
We have access to oneself. Because, you know, when we get sick, we resist, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we get sick, two things happen actually. First, with a chronic disease, we acquire identity of the disease, right? We are no longer Wes, I am diabetic, say for 10 years, for example, right? And the second thing is we keep resisting. We're resisting. This is unwelcome outcome, right? We resist.
Right.
And we say we resist disease. And the expression of this disease would be that we are fighting the disease. You know, we have all this imaging of warriors inside of us fighting the disease. But, you know, it's a resistance.
Yeah.
And we say we resist disease. Yes, makes sense, but where the disease is happening, it's happening in us, right?
Sure.
So what we actually resist is resisting life.
Yes.
Wes, can I just add something in here, because this is fascinating to me, and it's fascinating for two reasons. When you were talking about the patient's response to the doctor who says you have cancer and I'm scheduling you for chemotherapy, that the yes and opens up space for something for the patient to be able to think about it in that way. You mentioned earlier that when you're working with a patient that you don't know what's going to happen. And so the thing that I think is interesting here is that the yes and really needs to be on both sides of the loop, doesn't it? That is, the doctor needs to hold this yes and attitude as well. And,
yeah.
and that relates to what I think about hypnotherapists in terms of what it is that we're doing with our clients. Not just how we want them to think and for them to be more open to possibilities and things, but for us to in fact have enough room to keep out of the way, to stop telling them. See, I like to tell hypnotists to stop giving people suggestions. I think that's the most important thing that we could do. but that we need to have that openness as well when we work with clients.
Yeah, well, let me answer that important question with my experience with Second City. If some of you don't know the Second City, this is the Mecca, this is the Harvard of improv. Colbert and any others famous comedians started with Second City.
John,
so I've been getting trainings in improv for probably 3 years. And this year I decided to go to the Mecca and taste the Second City. And what I learned, to my surprise, was when they perform, even though it is Mecca of improv, which by default is unscripted. The improv is the art of unscripted, spontaneous, done on the spot, and never repeated art.
Mm-hmm.
However, in Second City, they show is actually scripted sketches based on improv experience. So they first experiment with the ideas using improv, unscripted, everything goes technique. And based on that, they arrive and choose the best scripted sketch. And when they perform, in the middle of performance, they install small pieces of unscripted, pure improvisation.
Yeah.
And then at the end, once they finish the scripted thing, the third act is they even change the clothes to state that the third act is pure improvisation. And this is where they get the material for building another sketch.
Mm.
So when we apply this to work of the healer, is that we indeed use the script. We indeed use certain words, certain phrases, right? Because we know that they are working. But they are working not because we read about them. They work because we experiment with them in our life and in life of our patients. And the second thing, which I learned at Second City during the performances, was, and the major flagship performance, you know, the whole theater, it's full, it's a politically oriented performance, and it's over, and then the actor comes back and tells the audience, says, look, you are looking at us and you think, well, it's easy, nothing to it. I mean, you are just running on the stage, laughing and doing silly things. Nothing, it's easy. And he says, okay, go home, F yourself. Because it's very, very hard. It takes years and years to show what you look, it's easy. And I think that this is also our craft, our healers. That, you know, to arrive to some discussion of improv, it is because we sweat for years with structures form, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And there is also something, you know, when we look at spiritual development and spiritual growth, and why I bring this to healing, because I believe that every successful healing is actually spiritual event. Because not because of religion, but because of the force which keeps me alive is called spirit. And that force is responsible for life and responsible for healing. So and from that place, I believe that plenty of good healing scripts we can actually learn from sacred writings, from Holy Scriptures. And what they agreed both, and I mean both, most of them, is that this enlightenment or spiritual advancement comes with the capacity of holding the opposite. Because, you know, this is, I think, that what they call that we are spirit experiencing human experience, mm-hmm. that human experience is dualistic. And, you know, in the past we thought that being spiritual is to reject dualistic world, that I'm above or beyond that. But it's just opposite, that we are in service of this dualistic world by helping people to function. It is our spirituality. And from that standpoint, I believe that expression yes and is synonym with that, is synonym with the mindfulness. You know, definition of mindfulness is to, whether it says, but I believe that it is being an objective observant without being consumed by the energy what we are observing.
I think, Wes, that, and Michael, I bet you would agree with this, that it's a little bit like the old NLP presupposition, there's no failure, only feedback. Because that's really what it is, yes and. Okay, what you're responding to is just feedback for me to take the next step. And when we were talking about improv, Wes, you and I, you said that when you go on and do an improv, you don't know really anything. You go as a blank slate, and you're given a character to be, and you be that character. And your job is to hold the space of that character, correct? And then everything else interacts and reacts around you. Is that what you're talking about? Everything has to do with open for feedback and reaction.
Yeah, this is the beauty of improv, actually, probably its healing potential, that as, say, two people perform, and we have to join them, and they have interaction, and they have dialogue. And our job is to contribute to what they are doing. But we will fail in improv if we figure out what we are going to contribute. What we know before we make physical step towards the scene is one thing: what I feel. What I feel. And then once I agree to what I feel, I bring this as my contribution. And this relates very much to healing. And actually, I use the exercise with my patients. Let's do exercise, and then we'll see how it's working.
Yes.
So there are three of us who are unmuted, right?
Right.
And two of you are my guinea pigs.
Okay.
And I invite you to make a dialogue, but it will be funny dialogue. Which, Karen, you are number one. Michael, you are number two. Are you okay being number two?
All right. For the moment.
For this session.
I've been there before.
Wise choice with Karen, wise choice. So Karen, start with a regular neutral sentence. A sentence which makes sense, but is neutral.
Okay.
And Michael makes emotional reaction without words. So for example, and then Karen has to respond with a statement which matches the intensity and the nature of his reaction. So for example, you say, yesterday late night, I was crossing First Avenue. And Mike says, oh my God, oh my God. And you say, oh yeah, I was almost run over by the bus.
Got it, okay.
Right?
So I can say, oh my God, oh my God.
Yeah, you express emotion without words, but do this, clearly. Do this like 85%.
Okay, does that mean without words like, oh my God?
Yeah, oh my God is without word. I mean,
Okay, I'm with you.
But don't create any sentence.
Without content.
That's right. But be clear.
Emotional response.
Yeah, before she starts saying, you are making selection, what emotions you are going to express, and you are making full commitment to express these particular emotions. And then, Karen, you respond matching his emotions with a statement which matches his emotion. Okay?
Okay.
And I'm not going to decide anything until I hear her statement, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Go.
It has been a busy day of packing for adventure.
Oh my God.
Yes, it was difficult and onerous.
Okay, so let's switch the roles. Now, Michael, you will be coming with the sentence, and Karen will have opportunity to be emotional.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. It rains. It rained this afternoon at 4 o'clock.
And the ducks, I don't talk. You have to say it again, I'm sorry.
It rained this afternoon at 4 o'clock.
Whee!
It was lovely, wasn't it? We had a really great time out there.
Fantastic. So tell me, if this would happen in the session, what this would bring, what value this would bring?
It would certainly begin to create rapport because it wasn't
pitting me against her in any way. Right? Oh, except that, well, yeah.
It requires listening. It requires the dance. You have to really be in step with what your partner's doing and pay attention, observe.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I actually use this quite often. Obviously, not necessarily on the first appointment, but the advantage to me is that when we are sick for the long time, we are losing ourselves. We are losing connection with ourselves. And the first thing we are losing is emotional connection with ourselves, right? We actually dial down our suffering, and with dialing down suffering, we are dialing down our emotions, right?
All of them.
Yeah, we basically say, I don't want to deal with that, right? So inviting people to express emotion is already by itself healing act.
Mm.
Besides that, we invite them to be honest because we are honest. You know, in old times, I was gaining honesty with my patients by making personal disclosures about my life, about my disease, about my healing, right? And it was honest because, you know, let's be frank, we are in healing business because we want to heal ourselves, right? Like my psychiatrist colleague always says that when she sees new patient in her office, she heals herself and one more person.
Yeah.
So I was making personal disclosures, but I had always, you know, negotiate how much should I disclose, not to become, you know, portray myself as a weak, unresourceful, whatever. And I found the improv is much easier. It's much easier because it gets to that much faster, without risk, and also has this component of rapid induction.
Yes.
That patient is caught by surprise. He doesn't know what is happening. And this is induction by itself. On top of the fact that people who come sick, they're already in hypnotic induction.
Yes.
That the only time I use actual induction is when they are so emotional that they cannot sit, or they are so pain that I have to attend to pain. But otherwise, you know, by default, they are already hypnotized by the disease, right?
And that's just as true, isn't it? For not only patients with diseases, but for people that come in with emotional difficulties and challenges and stress issues and everything.
Nail biting. They're hypnotized already. They're in that trance. So that's their comforting go-to maneuver. Right?
I love nail biting.
Well, you can keep it. You don't have to change it then.
But if you allow me, let's go back to that main two strategies which we help people to change the hypnotic script to more functional, right?
Yes.
We talk about the one that changing bad dream for a little bit better dream, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is what basically medicine is actually based on. But we have a better opportunity, and I believe that better opportunity is first in building patient to the point that they are willing and curious to see whether they are running script, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this is already the major understanding that somebody who believes that makes all the decision in life consciously realize that it wasn't that way. actually, as clinical psychology indicates, most of our decisions, if not all our decisions, are actually unconscious, and then conscious mind makes story to justify our decision. Yeah. So that the realization that I may be less in charge to what is happening and what has happened is very important, because not only one is curious that there may be something more, but very importantly, as it relates to chronic diseases, it absolutes somebody from this guilt for being sick. Yeah. And if one understands that the lifestyle decision which led to overweight, cardiovascular disease, whatever, are actually not conscious, the guilt and shame can go away. And without guilt and shame, we start working on healing, right? So this is the first step. And the second step is to invite them to the place of freedom of selecting their own functional dream, right? Because look, let's be honest. Do we always know what is good for us? For me, very rarely. Yeah. So how can we even dream that we know what is good for the patient? Yes. So if we create this space in which they say, wow, there is actually freedom. But the problem of that, there are two problems. That first, it requires plenty of building up. So if somebody comes with a practice of meditation, 10 years of other spiritual practice, they have scaffolding to hold this realization. But if they don't, I believe it's our job to help them to hold this discovery, because this discovery leads to giving up on own stories. Not only on the story of being sick, but all the stories of who we are. Yeah. And there is this hiatus, there's this space when there is nothing. Yeah. And this is so scary that people would rather be sick unnecessary for years, because the fact of giving up that identity. Because whenever we are willing to give up something, we are still willing to give something for something, right? Mm-hmm. But if we are told, you will be invited to give up, and I don't know what will be next. Yeah, there was a story of wise king who is offered a choice to man who is going to be executed. He says, you have two choices, either to be hanged as you deserved, or to cross this door. And the guy says, what is behind the door? And the king says, nobody knows. And he chooses to be hanged. Mm. And this is many of us actually when we are being offered a healing. Yes. But but there is one secret of that we cannot invite somebody if we are not capable to do it ourselves.
I'm curious too, Wes, about the duality maybe of all of this DNA strand that you're talking about, because you've got the client who has their whole lineage that they're working with or against, and they may have a lineage that stipulates giving up. I mean, that may be in their history. or they may have a history of fighting, as the case may be, going along or fighting. Could be their survival strategies. One could have a survival strategy of going along, one could have a survival strategy of fighting. So I'm curious about how that lineage plays in, and it plays against the hypnotist or the healer's lineage as well, because you've got those two competing elements coming together at that point too.
It's a beautiful question, and the answer is actually very simple. That the fact that they have their personal story and we have our personal story is very, 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 very small, minute percentage to the fact that we are one. That these stories cannot be strong enough to differentiate us in the difference between us. That's why I was saying that my condition in my office is that I give up of my story. Because when we give my personal story, we can relate to the communal story, to the story of creation, to the story of evolution. This is what Namaste says, that my spirit, my God, respects yours, and when we are there, we are one, right?
Yes, yes.
So you see, when I will try to go into their story, which is confusing for themselves already because of suppressed memories and so-called artificial memories, I am going into minefield. And with improv, I have fantastic tool to relate to the moment of now and to the fact that our differences are actually pure illusion.
Yes.
There is a common reference point. And I believe that this is where improv meets hypnotherapy, that combining forces, we can easily access the reference point of our shared identity. Because you see, Karen, if we go deeper with your question, it is not just our individual lineage. We have lineage of the nations, right? For example, if I talk with my German colleagues, they have open wound of World War II. I think this nation has many open wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
So if we go that part, we can get completely confused. Actually, there is a very beautiful theatrical form, which is kind of variation of improv and family constellation. It's called playback theater.
Yes.
Playback theater is when the actors perform the story, which is narrated by person. They usually talk about problems in relationships or work or even disease. And they just play out in the supportive way. Also, you know, I forgot to underline the fact that improv by itself is kind of a curiously powerful, because by default is a team-based performance, team-based activity,
Yeah.
which is against very important for healing, because when we are sick, we are going like 400 millions back, and we are going outside of the village to lick our wounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
We tend to isolate when we are sick.
Yeah.
So the fact that we are bringing modality, which by default is team-based, is already healing act. And on top of that, as every modality, it has to end up as a self-healing modality. Because we know that every healing is self-healing, that every hypnosis is self-hypnosis, right?
Right.
And the same applies to improvisation. Because, look, in our heads, we have many teams, right? Not one, many teams. And you may be familiar with the default system. The default system is that all these voices in our head are very active, playing, quarreling, whatever, where we are not focused on the task. So for example, meditation is so healing because it quiets down the default system. Mm-hmm. And default system is nothing else but the recorded past. What happened, who said what, who hurt me, whatever. So it's actually impossible to be in the now when the default system or autopilot is on.
Yeah.
When we improv, we have to be in the now. And that very thing of being in the now, in the moment of improv, has capacity of rewiring our circuit with a phenomena called neuroplasticity.
Yes.
That this conversation leaves us different in our circuit than we started.
Yes.
There was plenty of rewiring happening during this an hour and a half already.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And we've just discovered the only sane people on the planet are the improv folks. Or the only healthy people, maybe.
I'm just saying. So by the way, Dr. Wes, we have a question, and there's a guy out here. His name is Steve, and Steve has had his hand in the air for the longest time. So I'm betting that all of the blood has rushed out of his fingers and everything. I hope that he's all right. So Steve, if you're still there, I'm going to unmute your microphone. And what's on your mind?
Steve's a little blurry.
The blood is gone.
Has he left? Yeah. He got. Oh no, he's there with his hand in the air. Steve, can you hear me? I think he may have wandered off for a moment.
Stepped away. Yeah.
Okay. Well, all right. So we can check with him in the next few minutes. But it is that time where we've got only about 10 minutes left, and time for us to open up for some questions. Are you ready to hear from these folks, Doctor?
Oh, sure. Fantastic. Mm-hmm.
Great. So, well, certainly a lot of stimulating stuff that we've been talking about. So, if anybody has a question and would like to ask it, now would be the time to do that. As a matter of fact, you can just feel free to unmute your microphone and announce yourself and go for it.
Steve's mic is now unmuted. Did you do that, or is he back?
I did that.
Okay.
He's not returned yet, I don't think.
Okay. So I'm curious, Wes, how often do you play improv games with hypnosis clients?
How often?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
every client, or does it depend?
You see, my goal is to make improv automatic in my life, the fourth stage of learning. So besides continued education with improv places, I try my improv before I try with my patient in the supermarket checkout with anyone I react or interact, because the improv is healing because it happens in relationship. So if I would only reserve improv for my office-based relationship, I'll be risking that this will be artificial. That will be not actually pure improv because I will be trying to do this right or whatever. My dream is that this becomes that I don't know that I know that I'm improvising.
Yes.
Right. Unconscious competence.
That's right, unconscious competence.
Yeah.
But to arrive to that point, we have three different other steps. Very, very difficult actually. So again, we know very well that healing is not the event, right? Healing is the attitude, is a lifestyle, it's a belief, right? Not the event. The same as disease is not the event. It's a process. And healing is the process which will continue until the last breath for the very thing that we have body which continue healing itself. So we have two options, either to work along as a partners or to deny and, singing songs on the cover septic tank.
Yeah. Nice. This has always been a sense of mine, at least, and I certainly talk about it in different terms, but I have a real appreciation of this notion of the work that we do, not being scripted, being in the moment, and being something that really is organic, when it is that we're doing it. And I see far too often, I see examples. Something I posted on a group a while ago about a guy who literally, in fact, Karen used this as her example earlier, but a guy who wanted to stop chewing his fingernails. And he went to see a hypnotherapist who, before he even got to the hypnotherapist's office, the therapist had clearly decided what it was that he was going to do. And he began to proceed with this guy to take him back to incidences in his childhood and all sorts of things, and stirred up a whole lot of emotional baggage for this fella, such that not only did he not stop biting his fingernails, but he went home and did damage in his relationships with his family and all kinds of people because this hypnotist had sort of put him onto the fact that he had been a victim all of his life of the people around him. And this very idea of us going in with some agenda or some idea or some particular worldview about, I know how it is that people become this way. Every once in a while, I'll talk to a client or mention something about a client that I'm working with, and the hypnotist will tell me, well, obviously a person who says something like that must have been sexually abused in their childhood.
Yeah, I think that this borderlines of malpractice.
Yeah, well, I think so.
And I think that this is the beautiful safety feature of improv, that it's a powerful healing technique which appears as play. There's very little risk involved, and also, we learn from the childhood that we learn through playing, right?
Right.
I think some of the best hypnosis comes through play too.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's really disarming to ask a client, would you like to play a game with me, and then do some hypnotic phenomenon? Because what are they going to resist with a game? Sure, I'll play a game, and they're all about it. Mm-hmm.
There's a condition. There's a statement in medicine. Your situation is too serious to apply serious methods to it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, nice.
And I think that play is already hypnotic induction, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
By itself.
Yeah.
Well, and it really seems to evoke that early learning set as well, which is something that's so important in the Ericksonian paradigm. I've noticed, by the way, and Wes, I hope that you've got somewhere in your office, or I'm sure that you've had, but a nice high table that if I were to sit on it, my feet wouldn't touch the ground. And the reason that I say that is that I have this experience of being in a doctor's office, and it's so pronounced with me. It seems absolutely automatic. But being in a doctor's office, sitting on an examining table, waiting for the doctor to arrive, they've done their triage and whatever, and so I'm sitting there, and my feet don't quite reach the floor, and I'm waiting, and my feet don't quite reach the floor, and after a little while, my legs start to swing back and forth a little bit. And I notice that I'm starting to take on the characteristics of a 7-year-old, because when was the last time, that my feet didn't reach the floor? And I have regressed to some childhood place.
It's so important that you brought it, because it's intended. The system is intended to disempower you, because once you're disempowered, then you can be controlled to do complete nonsense. And with this is so beautiful to bring at the end of the session on improv, because if we can do only one thing from improv, to teach people the power of these two words, yes and. If we can teach people to have this empowering yes, just because it is, and we have all this 400 million years of database to deal with that, and we have resources, because the childhood injury, it's important because it never ends. It never ends in the head. The people die, but the toxic memory lives. As long as we cannot learn that we have capacity to say yes in the resourceful way, because the whole childhood injury was disempowering no. It was no to everything. And healing of that is this empowering yes and resourceful and. As Karen said in her book, the magic word which opens us to the universe, to the whole resources. So bloody easy, so difficult to do.
Absolutely, that's fantastic.
I love you as a healer, but I might want to hire you as my publicist.
Great. Okay, so now I hate to say it, but it's come to be that time already. So Wes, first of all, a quick thank you. We're going to do a little bit more than that, but a quick thank you. And I want you to just hang on there for a second, because we're going to give you a proper send off before we complete this. But we do need to make those last little announcements and just remind everybody. CEUs are available again from IACT, from IMDHA, from IHF, from ICBCH, and from just about anybody who is lovely and friendly. So let me know if you're in a hypnosis organization that you've been here to the chapter and you want to get your credits. The replay will be available tomorrow by noon, and probably a lot sooner than that. It will be posted on the IACT IMDHA forum. It will be posted on the virtual chapter YouTube channel. It will be posted on virtual chapter group in Facebook, and gosh, I don't know wherever else. But so you will see it. Pass it around. Let your friends know about it. And next month, Connie Ray Andreas. So be sure to join us for that. So now, Dr. Wes Rocki, is your seatbelt fastened? Because
a pleasure.
Because it has been a great pleasure. We really appreciate you being here with us. And what we're going to do now is we are going to unmute everybody's microphones. So in a great cacophony of love and affection, we can thank you for being with us tonight and wish you well. So thank you so much for...
Thanks very much, Wes. Very interesting and appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dr. Rocki. It was great.
Thank you. Wonderful. Bravo very much. Appreciate it.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Rocki.
Thank you.
See you soon.
See you all soon.